Hello everyone, and thank you for joining me today. I'd like to take a moment to respond to an idea that many of us have been discussing lately, an idea famously popularized by CGP Grey in his video, The Simple Solution to Traffic. CGP Grey presents a compelling, straightforward vision, a solution that at first glance seems so elegantly simple that it almost defies the complexity we associate with traffic congestion. But as with most solutions that seem too good to be true, there's much more beneath the surface than meets the eye. To summarize CGP Grey's proposal briefly, he argues that traffic isn't an intractable problem. It's simply the result of misaligned incentives, poor infrastructure planning, and the absence of appropriate restrictions. In his view, if we change a few key variables such as reducing road capacity in targeted ways, enforcing smarter use of public spaces, or even recalibrating the very nature of our roads, we could dramatically cut down on traffic congestion. It's a solution that cuts through the noise and asks us to rethink how we interact with our urban landscapes. Although this idea is undeniably fascinating and intellectually stimulating, I'd like to offer a response that explores both its promise and its pitfalls. First, let's acknowledge the appeal of simplicity. We live in a world where complexity can overwhelm decision-makers and everyday citizens alike. The allure of a solution that turns a messy, multifaceted problem into a clear, actionable plan is tremendous. There's undeniable beauty in the notion that by simply getting rid of excess capacity or by rethinking our priorities, we could coax our cities into operating more efficiently. This clarity is something many modern urban planners and policymakers crave. However, the reality of urban traffic is messy and deeply intertwined with human behavior, economic imperatives, and social priorities. Traffic isn't just about cars on the road, it's a reflection of how we organize our work, our leisure, and our very lives. When we drive, we're not just moving from point A to point B or participating in a network of interactions that include commerce, education, and community. Any solution that seeks to reduce traffic must contend with these intertwined factors. A reduction in road capacity might indeed discourage some driving, but it could also create unintended consequences. Longer travel times for those who must drive, economic disruptions for businesses that rely on vehicular access, and even social inequality, as those with alternatives to driving find themselves increasingly marginalized. Moreover, a simple solution may underestimate the inertia inherent in our urban systems. Cities are complex, evolving organisms, and even well-intentioned changes can have ripple effects that take years or even decades to fully understand. For instance, if we decide to restrict road space or increase the cost of driving in central areas, will people adapt by taking public transportation, or will they simply change their schedules or even relocate to the suburbs? And what of the environmental impacts of these changes? A sudden shift in transportation patterns could produce outcomes that are difficult to predict, both positive and negative. I also want to address a critical element that CGP Grey's proposal might not fully capture: human psychology and behavior. People often resist change, particularly when it affects their daily routines. We might intellectually agree that a simple solution could work when it comes to altering our habits, like driving a car that we rely on for our daily commute. We're not always rational actors. Change requires not just infrastructure adjustments, but also cultural shifts. Demands that we rethink how we value convenience, personal freedom, and time. Without addressing these underlying behavioral factors, any infrastructural solution risks being undermined by the very people it's meant to help. There is also a matter of political feasibility. Even if a simple solution to traffic congestion exists in theory, implementing it requires coordinated effort across multiple levels of government, buy-in from various stakeholders, and perhaps most challenging of all, convincing the public that a temporary inconvenience is worth a long-term gain. Policy decisions are rarely made in a vacuum, and the complexities of urban governance mean that what sounds brilliant in a video may encounter a labyrinth of bureaucratic, financial, and political hurdles when put into practice. I believe that these challenges do not invalidate the core insight behind CGP Grey's proposal. They simply remind us that real-world problems demand nuanced, multi-layered approaches. The beauty of his argument lies in its power to simplify a problem enough to spark discussion and innovation. His solution serves as a catalyst, a starting point for a broader dialogue about how we can reimagine urban mobility. It forces us to ask, what are we really trying to achieve? Is it merely the reduction of congestion, or is it the creation of more livable, sustainable, and equitable cities? Perhaps the true lesson here is that there is no one-size-fits-all answer. The simple solution might be simple in concept, but its execution will inevitably be complex. It calls for a balanced approach that takes into account not only the physical infrastructure of our roads, but also the social and economic ecosystems that depend on them. This means integrating public transit, encouraging active transportation, and embracing technological innovations like ride-sharing and autonomous vehicles, and crucially engaging communities in the decision-making process. In closing, while CGP Grey's proposal may be framed as a simple solution to traffic, my response is one of cautious optimism. There is merit in his argument and an invitation to rethink our assumptions and to explore bold, innovative changes. Yet it's also a call to recognize the complexity of urban life and the myriad factors that shape our transportation systems. Real progress will come not from a single solution, but from a holistic reimagining of how we build and move in our cities. Thank you for your attention, and I hope that this discussion inspires you to look at everyday challenges from new, creative perspectives. Together we can navigate the complexities of urban life and drive meaningful change.